This story by far is not as crazy as other stories on here, but I think it fits. This happened several years ago, I think 2009 or 2010. One summer evening, I hung out with my girlfriend for a day at her house. I ended up leaving at around 10 or 11 p.m., so it was quite dark out. Before I drove off though, my girlfriend hung out with me in my car for a few minutes. Now, my car's an early 90s Dodge or Pateron sedan, so it did not have automatic locks. When my girlfriend stepped out of my car, she did not lock the door again. I drove off, and instead of taking the back road home like I usually did, I decided to take the main road. Since it was late at night, there wasn't many cars out. However, there was a lady standing next to a bus stop. She was pacing around in a circle. I got a sense that she was anxious or nervous about something. When she saw my car, she flagged me down. I pulled over and reached over to roll the window down. That's when I noticed the door wasn't locked, and before I could do anything, the lady just opened the passenger door and took a seat. I was surprised by this, but I didn't feel like this lady was a threat. She was white, blonde hair, and probably in her late 30s or early 40s. I asked her if she's okay or if she needs help. She tells me that she's just trying to get home, but her phone died, so she couldn't get a hold of anyone. She also said she missed the last bus. This sounded plausible to me, and since she didn't seem threatening, I offered to drive her home. I started driving up to the main road and asked her for directions to her place. We drove for maybe around 2 minutes when she told me to turn over into a residential neighborhood. As we were driving through here, she started talking to me non-stop. Thank you so much for stopping. Not everyone is as nice as you. You're real cute, you know that. Your car is super awesome too. I replied with a weak, yeah, thanks. She went on. It's so nice to find someone who is trusting this late at night. I like trusting people. At that point, we came to a stop sign, so I looked at the left and right. When I turned to the right, she gave me a creepy smile, like ear-to-ear Joker type smile. I also noticed for the first time that her pupils were very dilated and darting around all over the place. At this point, I finally started to realize that picking up a strange woman late at night who may be on drugs perhaps was not the best idea. I started to think ways to get her out of my car, but I also didn't want to be rude. Before I could think of anything though, she asked me for my phone so she could give me her friend a call and let them know that she was coming home. I sheepishly lied to her and said I didn't have a phone. I was then struck with a feeling of dread because my phone ringer was set to loud, and notifications or messages would reveal my lie. Just my luck, a moment later someone texted me and my phone went off. I thought you didn't have a phone. Oh, I forgot that I had it. I thought I left it at home. I don't appreciate being lied to. She trailed off, as if she had more to say. I started to get really nervous at this point. We were deep in this neighborhood, but it was really dark. I needed to get this lady out now. She then points up to the road and tells me to take a right at the next stop sign. The road curved a bit, so from where I was, I could see that there was a dead-end sign. For whatever reason, the thought of turning into this dead-end street terrified me. I then had an idea. Right before we got to the stop sign, I pulled over and told the lady that my car was making a funny noise, and the temperature gauge was slowly going up. I turned off my car and popped up my trunk. I told her I was grabbing a flashlight from the trunk, and if she could step out and hold the light for me while I looked into the engine. I got out of the car. I looked back at her and she looked both mad and annoyed, but she also stepped out. I went to my trunk and rummaged through the things I had. There were a few seconds. My flashlight was right in front of me, but I needed to be sure that she was standing in front of the car. Once she was there, I closed my trunk and started walking to the front of the car with my flashlight. My heart was pounding, but I knew I had to keep my voice steady. I gave her the flashlight, and then said something like, "Oops, I forgot to pop open the hood. Let me do that real quick." I got back in my car, and I popped up my hood. At the same time though, I turned the car back on and threw it into reverse. The lady just stood there staring at me. Once I had enough distance, I pulled the car back in drive and drove straight past her. She was standing near a street light, so I got one last look at her. I noticed that she was holding a knife of some sort in her hand. There was also a large man that stepped out of the shadows and stood next to her. At first, I thought she might be getting attacked, but then they walked away together. I knew that this was 100% my fault. It was stupid of me to let her get in my car, and even stupider for me to agree to drive her home. I don't know why she didn't try to attack me earlier. I don't know if they were looking to simply carjack me or do something else. So, for some context, I was 26 and I'm a lady. I needed gas and it was around 11 p.m. on a Saturday. I pulled into a busy gas station to fill my tank, except it was completely bare, not a car in sight. I also live in Alaska and it was really cold this night, maybe around -10 degrees. Tired after work, just wanting to get home. Usually I start my pump and sit in my car due to the freezing cold, but this time I had a weird feeling that I needed to stand by the pump, so I did. I just started pumping my gas when a little golden sedan pulled over right next to me. A guy got out and I was feeling hypervigilant for some reason. He started cleaning his completely clean windows. As he put back the squeal, he stared towards me. I felt like I wanted to run, but stay calm and continue pumping. He asked me if I would help him put his windshield wiper fluid in his car, because he ran out and he doesn't know how to open the hood. I laughed it off and told him I didn't know either. He kept getting closer and closer to me while trying to lure me into his car by saying there's something under his seat because he can't reach it because he's too big. Now, I'm 5'2" and petite. This man was large and had scruffy beard. At this point, I'm freaking out and hit the call button on the pump. He took a step back and started to go back to his car. I thought I was being smart. My gas is almost done. I looked in his car when I noticed the insides of the door had no handles, except for the driver door, which freaked me out. I was putting the pump back and opening my door. He was right behind me, slammed my door shut, and yelled, "You're coming with me." Obviously I refused, and I was petrified. He grabbed my arm and slammed me against the car. I elbowed him as hard as I could and started screaming at the top of my lungs. Thank God for the gas attendee with a big ass gun that night, because if it wasn't for him, I don't know what would have happened. The attendant pulled a video and we made a police report. I called immediately after that guy took off. I never heard anything else about it. I just hope he didn't get some other girl alone. So, this happened about 10 years ago when I was a freshman in college and I had just started dating my boyfriend. He lived a few towns away from me at the time, and I was taking some of the back roads towards the parkway to get home. I had fallen asleep at his house while watching a movie, so it was about 3 a.m. and I was exhausted. I knew the way to the parkway well enough, but I was still not familiar with that particular part of town. As you get closer to the parkway, you have to actually cut through the park to get through the entrance ramp. That being said, there were a few lights and the nearest house wasn't far, but it was totally out of sight. I pulled into the short road and see a golden sedan stopped in the middle of the road. It was actually stopped in a way that it didn't matter which way you were traveling. It was going to be a squeeze to get around him. Just for a little background, I am very small, and at the time, I might have weighed 100 pounds, and I only stand about 5 feet tall. So, I slow down my car, and I'm trying to see if I can see headlights coming from the other direction, so I can pull around him. But before I could make a move, this tall man runs around from the front of this stopped car and starts waving his arm to get my attention. As I mentioned, I'm small, young, alone, and it's 3 a.m. There's no way I was going to stop for this guy. He didn't look worried. He didn't even look that scary, but an alarm went off in my head that something wasn't right. I tried to inch up so I could pass him, but he then stands in front of my car, and it's not going to let me pass. I quickly locked my car doors and stopped. He starts trying to talk to me, and he's now making his way over to my window. My hearing isn't very good, but he was very close to me that I could read his lips. He was asking me for help. He wanted my cell phone to call someone. I said that I was very sorry, but no. He'd had his hands on my window. Please. I said no again, and didn't even care if I ran over his foot. I just left, and I was starting to get scared. I was able to just barely pass, but had to do so in the oncoming traffic lane. I look at my mirror, and he was just standing in the middle of the road staring at me. I could see the anger on his face in my braking lights. I pull back into the right lane, and as I did, my headlights catch 3 men climbing out from the bushes. They were all dressed in the same black t-shirt and jeans, and they were all glaring at me. I could almost feel the anger radiating off of them. I gunned it and flew up the road and into the parkway. I could feel my whole body shaking. What had just happened? What were they going to do if I had stopped? I pull out my phone and call the police. They had transferred to me a few times because no one could figure it out if I should be talking to the county police or highway patrol. When I was finally able to tell someone what had happened, they sent a car over to check it out. I had asked the officer to call me back and let me know if they had found anything, since I drive there a lot. Later, he told me that by the time they got there, the man in the car were gone, but not even 5 minutes after they spoke to me, another woman called in, had the same story as me, in that same location. I was advised not to drive over by that park at night anymore. I had no idea that it was not safe at the time, and had never taken that exit at night since. I told my parents. My mom cried and my dad was crazy angry, but they were both proud of me for not stopping. And there was also a new rule insinuated in our family, that we had to text someone when we were on our way home.